Hi, hello, hope you're doing well. So today we are doing a digital sketchbook tour. I love seeing artists kind of go through and talk about specific paintings and just the stories behind them. But since I pretty much just do digital art, I never really get the opportunity to do a sketchbook tour. I still wanted to share the artwork that I did this year, so that's what we're gonna do. I have picked out a bunch of my favorite artwork. I picked out some sketches too that I did. I've put all of my artwork in like a collage thing. And yeah, I'm just gonna talk about it and kind of go through it with you guys. So yeah, let's get to it. The first painting that I'm sharing is the very first painting I did in 2025. And I think I did this for a YouTube video actually. I basically was redoing my skin painting tutorial video. And so that's what this painting ended up being. And it's kind of crazy to see my first post of 2025 because my art style has just changed so much. I also look at this and I can see like little anatomy mistakes and just things that I know I would do differently now. So it's kind of crazy to look back on this and see this. I think I said in that YouTube video something about trying not to make the skin look too orangey because you end up with like an Oompa Loompa character. And somebody commented and was like, I think it's kind of ironic that you gave them like green hair because like for Oompa Loompa, which I just always thought was really funny. So every time I look at this, I just think Oompa Loompa. But yeah, I definitely see a lot of mistakes and just things that I would do differently now. But it is really cool to kind of look back and just see how much my art has grown from this point. Is really cool to see. And then this was the second big painting that I did in 2025. And this was of Aelin from Throne of Glass. I actually still really like this painting. Probably one of my favorite paintings of this entire year, was this one of Aelin because I just feel like I really worked hard on anatomy. I did a lot of behind the scenes anatomy sketching and just more practice. I think it really is starting to show. And I also experimented more with texture. So you can kind of see in the background here that there's I took a texture brush on a multiply layer and just started going through the background. One thing that I will say, looking at my early 2025 work versus now, is my backgrounds have gotten so much better over time, which it makes me really, really happy because backgrounds scare me, honestly. So it's really nice to see that I have made progress in that area. This was another fun painting that I did. I kind of look at this and laugh because the way that her hand is, I was following multiple references and I didn't really catch this. I wanted the knife to be pressing against his neck and it's not. It's to the side and it looks like she's just throat punching him. So this one always makes me laugh every time I see it, but yeah. Anyway, I really struggled this year with trying to figure out my art style, and I think these two paintings, when you put them side by side, I think it really shows. These were kind of the two styles that I kept struggling with, and because I feel like this Aelin one is much more painterly, it's closer to what I wanted my art to look like. But I also love that sort of illustrative style where it's much more just graphic and just clean lines and shapes, but a lot more texture is used. And I think that's kind of what I was going for with this one with Jude and Carden from The Cruel Prince. I think I was kind of experimenting more with that kind of style. I just want to find a way to sort of mesh those two together. And I feel like my style now definitely has meshed those two a lot better, I think. But it's kind of interesting to look back on earlier artwork and just kind of see where I was definitely going back and forth between those two styles. And I think you can kind of see that with these two also. So these were a couple of just character sheets kind of that I did. I basically just went on Pinterest and found a bunch of reference photos and then I tried to pick a couple of things that could kind of tie them together. So in the left-hand one, it was kind of accessories, but I feel like I definitely was focused on just graphic sort of look or shapes. And then the one on the right was a little bit more, I included more shadows. I painted over my line art a lot more. I played around with the multiply and overlay layers. And I really like both of these actually. I love the color palette for the left one. I think it turned out really pretty. But then I was kind of learning with this one on the right, I was still kind of learning how to mesh these two styles together. And then here's some artwork I did of Percy. Whenever I was in middle school, high school, all I drew was Percy Jackson characters. Like, that was my favorite book series. Absolutely loved it. I drew Percy and Annabeth all the time. Whenever I kind of slowly got back into drawing, I never really drew male characters very often. I feel like drawing male characters has just always eluded me. Like, I can just never figure it out. I actually remember, I think it's a painting from last year that I did of Aelin and Rowan. And I remember looking at Rowan and being like, this does not look like a Fey warrior. Like, this looks like a prepubescent boy, like thing, or like this looks like a lanky teenage boy. And so I was like, okay, like we gotta work on this a little bit. And so that's kind of where I started drawing more male characters, and I started with Percy because Percy is like my favorite. I know I also when I drew Cardan, it's the same thing. Like, Cardan, I feel like it's fine if he kind of looks like lanky, but like drawing characters from Throne of Glass or ACOTAR, those kind of characters are definitely a lot more like muscular. And so I really wanted to work on just getting more comfortable with drawing male characters. So this was like kind of that first step towards actually trying to draw more male characters. I did a ton of Tangled fan art this year. I don't really love the background of this one. So it's not my favorite, but I do like how Rapunzel turned out. I really, really liked the sketch of this one, which I will show on screen if I remember, because I really, really loved the sketch. I think the colors in this one are why I don't love how it turned out, because I think the sketch was really, really pretty. If I zoom in on the face here, you can kind of see looking at a lot more reference for lighting, especially on the face. And this is where I kind of started to realize that there are certain light zones on the face and certain areas where highlights will be really prominent, usually on the face. And I think this is where I started to kind of putting that in my paintings. And I think I overdid it, like the corners of the eyes here, for example. I think I overdid it in this one, but I do think that was good practice leading into figuring out how to learn that skill. So I definitely started looking at a lot more references around this point. I really loved this one when I first drew it, and then this is one of those ones where the second that I put it on Instagram or like put it on social media, I was like, I hate it. like I hate it. So I never really look at this one anymore. And I think the reason I hate it, like I can't help but laugh at it, because the proportions of this painting are just so off. Her head looks so tiny and her sword looks so big. What I did like about, like, it's just so funny to me now. Like, looking at it, I'm just like, how did I let that go? Like, how did I just, like, not realize that that was going on? One thing I did really like about this, and I think this is kind of the first painting where I really started looking at adding things to a background. So all of these other ones, the backgrounds are basically... There's really nothing to these backgrounds. Like, everything is just, occasionally I would just kind of add a little bit of a texture to them, and that was kind of it. But this was the first one where I really started playing around with elements in the background and just sort of making them more than just blocks of color. And I think that was a really important step. So I'm really happy with that. It's just, I look at this and I just see, like, the proportions are all crazy. So that's kind of funny. And then this was another painting that I did around the same time. I would still consider this like a work in progress. I never really finished this, but I just was trying to create more like landscape type paintings to try to get better at backgrounds. Like, I was thinking that making the characters really small and then focusing on the background as the painting would really help me with backgrounds for my character paintings. I think that kind of worked a little bit. Like, the more that I started doing these sort of landscape paintings, the better my backgrounds got. Even though it is kind of a different skill set, I think backgrounds in a portrait are going to be a little bit different than these kind of backgrounds, but I do think that these were really helpful in just sort of building up those skills. Okay, moving on. This was a painting that I did of Aelin and Rowan from Throne of Glass. I really liked this at the time. I feel like my anatomy is getting better as we're going through these. The only thing that I don't like about this painting is I forgot Rowan's tattoos. Nobody mentioned that, but every time I see it, I'm just like, I had his tattoos on the initial sketch. I couldn't remember what side of the face it was on, but I think I've looked it up since, and it is supposed to be on this side of his face. So that's a bummer. So I think my lighting has progressively started to get better as we go through the year. And then the next one, I did a lot of fan art. Like, I think the reason I did so much fan art this year is because I had just started getting back into books and reading books, because that's kind of what got me into art in the first place. Like, I love drawing book characters. That's basically how I grew my art skill as a kid. That's all I did was like draw book characters. So I think that's why I draw so many book characters now, that's just always been my biggest interest, my biggest passion with art. I think, especially starting with this painting and sort of moving on, I think with each painting, I started challenging myself. I was like, I'm gonna find one thing to really push in each painting. And I've just sort of kind of kept that mindset. And I think that's been a really big part of my growth this past year. Because like this one was trying to improve, like adding elements to a background, these flowers. And then this one with Aylin and Rowan, so playing around with the lighting a lot more was a really big challenge for me at the time. This one with Jude, I was trying to play with proportions and perspective. Her pointing the sword at the camera was a big perspective challenge for me. And I really like how all of these turned out, even though I can see mistakes with them now. I still think that they were really helpful and really cool to just sort of push myself. And so this next one with Katara, I pretty much never paint water. So this was another big challenge for me, but I really like how the water turned out in this one. I think her hands, like something about the anatomy just felt wrong with this one, and it kind of always has. Even when I painted it at the time, I didn't like the hands. Something about it, I could never get them to quite look right, but I do think there was a lot to sort of build on with this painting. So for example, I started learning more about bounce light, and so I sort of worked that in with some of the water bouncing up and hitting like her skin and her clothes. So I did learn a lot with this one, but it definitely, looking back, I do wish I had focused more on the anatomy. And then this portrait was actually a redraw. I love doing redraws or like repainting my old artwork. I just feel like it's a good opportunity to kind of see where you've improved. I highly, highly recommend doing redraws or repainting your old artwork. I think my anatomy really improved, and just my overall concept of lighting and shadow. The next couple ones I want to show are some book art that I did. I was doing a lot of fan art and book art, and I was reading a lot, and I was like, a lot of the artists that I follow on Instagram were showing book cover designs that they did, and I was like, I would love to do book cover art. To see my art in like a bookstore one day would be absolutely the coolest thing to ever happen. So I kind of decided that's what I wanted to start doing and working towards. This was probably like May or June of this year is when I really started doing more book cover designs. So this was the first one that I did. I'll show you on screen what it looked like with text, but this was just like the basic design of it. Again, I was really struggling with a graphic illustrative style versus more like concept art painterly type of style, and I think this one definitely falls into the more like graphic illustrative style, so I just kind of played around with that a lot. And then this next one, a fan art cover I did of The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which I read earlier this year. I also did a whole video on how I came up with the process for this book cover and all of that fun stuff. I will leave that linked up below. I will leave that linked down below or up here in the video if you want to check that out. Overall, I am really happy with this book cover. I do think I tried hand lettering. It turned out okay. I do definitely need to work on my hand lettering skills. But yeah, overall am really happy with it. I think it turned out really cool. And then these next two are K-pop Demon Hunter fan art. I had a couple of sketches. I can't find them anymore, so maybe I like got rid of them. But these two are definitely some of my favorite. I really, really liked this one of the bird and the tiger. I always thought those were really, really cool. I love how they turned out. This was definitely a challenge for myself, but I'm really glad that I did because I think it turned out really, really cool. Here are a couple of sketches that I did. So this top one is the one that I shared. I think I drew this one for one of my videos here on YouTube also for, I think, drawing, like learning how to draw difficult poses, and just kind of my mindset and thought process for drawing difficult poses. And then this one down on the bottom, I think I only ever shared to Patreon. I kind of want to throw these in here because I did a lot of artwork that I didn't necessarily show on Instagram, but I was doing a lot of these sort of things where I would just find reference photos on Pinterest and just start drawing. I really credit that to helping me grow as an artist this year, because I didn't really do that a lot before. Like I would basically anything that I created, I was posting. And this year I was a lot more selective about what I was posting, and then I would still do more artwork behind the scenes that was helping me grow and improve my art skills, even if you didn't necessarily see it. And for example, I'll show you in a minute, I did a bunch of clothing studies and I shared that on Patreon, but I didn't share that anywhere else. I feel like you don't necessarily get the whole picture when you just see what I post online, but I think that's really important to note if you are trying to improve your art skills, or you just see other artists online and just think like all of their art is just always amazing. Like some of it is literally just quick sketches like these that they're not sharing, but they're using to build up their skill. This one was a really cool one. Again, this one is more of a illustrative type of style, because I was still going back and forth very much throughout this year of trying to figure out how to mesh those two together. And this one I actually ended up doing an animation for, which I love how it turned out. I think it's really, really cool. And that was a lot of fun. I do have some videos on how I did that, which you can check out. And then we have Carden. Not a lot to say here, although I do think this is one of the first times I drew a male character that I was like pretty happy with how he turned out. He does look super young in this one. So that's another thing that I have to work on, is learning to draw characters age appropriate, or like to where they look like the age that I plan on them looking like. Because I think here he looks like 10 or 12. Like he does not look super old in this one. That's kind of my only complaint with this one. I also tried working with a border, which was really cool. I was really happy with it at the time. I do think I can do better. So I do want to work on like getting better at drawing borders. This next one is another book cover. This was just a completely made up book that I did. But yeah, I really liked it. I really wanted a like circular composition, and that's why I sort of created wings for this character to kind of help with that like circular thing that I was going for. So yeah, I really like how this one turned out. This one is probably my favorite. I don't know if it's necessarily my best, but I really liked how this one turned out. I thought it was really, really fun. I absolutely love this series, so anytime I get to draw like characters from it, I just love it. This was just a random sketch that I did. I don't think I shared this anywhere yet. This being a digital sketchbook tour, I feel like I should also share sketches, so that's why I added this one. But yeah, this is unfinished. I don't know if I'll ever finish it, to be honest. But yeah, I do like how it was looking at the time. Next we have more fan art of Tangled. Rapunzel is by far my favorite Disney princess. Absolutely love her. This is another one of my like most favorite paintings I did this year. I really, really love it. I think the colors came out phenomenal. Like I just love how the colors look. I added sort of a flower pattern in the background, which I think turned out really, really cute. Just everything about it, I'm just like, oh, so happy. And then this one is Rapunzel and Eugene after they've been married at night, and I just imagine there being like all these twinkling lights to kind of resemble the lanterns. I just thought that would be super cute. So yeah, I'm really happy with this one. I think if I were to ever redo this one, I do think I would change the way that I approach the lighting. I think the lighting could be better, but I do really like it. I think it was really, really good, especially for where I was at during this time. And then this is another one I did. I kind of wanted this to resemble Ophelia. I want to point out, I actually did this before like realizing that Taylor Swift had some song called like The Fate of Ophelia or whatever. Like this was before that. I had no idea, and then whenever I heard that song, it was like shortly after I had finished this painting, and I was like, oh, well, cool. But yeah, I read Hamlet in high school for my AP Lit class. I was always interested by that like storyline, and so I did add like one of the flowers that I know she had a bunch of like different flowers that symbolized different things for her, and so I just used one of those flowers in my painting. Again, I was trying to challenge myself, this time with drawing a character like half submerged in water. Not easy. Like that was not easy at all. I remember really struggling with the hair especially. But I think it turned out really well. Like I am really happy with how this one turned out. And then this next one is after I read One Dark Window. Highly, highly recommend that book series. Absolutely loved it. Also read Two Twisted Crowns. Really loved it too. But this one was definitely my favorite. I never really draw creatures like this, so it was a big challenge, but I'm really, really happy with how it came out. I feel like towards the end of the year, I started getting more particular about the decisions that I was making. So for example, her having this like backlight, it helped with like the mood of the painting that I was going for, but it also helped her stand out from the monster that's behind her, the nightmare. I just think it was cool to kind of see like decisions that I made like make sense, if that makes sense. With this one, I was painting a reference photo from Pinterest, and I was just trying to learn how to paint wings because I'm definitely not comfortable with that at all. I kind of wish I had changed the color palette. Like I think I could have done better with the color palette. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that one. Next one is just a small little drawing of Percy. I'm really proud of this one. I think this one, if I look and compare it to these that I did of Percy like towards the beginning of the year, there is so much improvement. Like I'm so happy with the progress that I've made with drawing male characters, because it just takes practice, I think. Like the more that you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. And yeah, I'm a lot happier with how like the progress that I've made, and I think it looks a lot better now. I was really excited with this one. And like I said, I used to draw Percy all the time in middle school, so he was like my go-to to draw. It's just cool to see my art get to a point that I always wanted it to as a kid. Like when I was drawing in middle school, this is kind of what I wanted to achieve. And it's really cool to kind of see that finally like coming out now, which is really cool. This one is, I think, my favorite painting of the year for me. I know I've kind of like crowned a couple of other ones as maybes, but this one I think definitely is my favorite painting of the year. It's either this one or the one I'll show you in a minute of Aelin and Rowan. I really want to get better at creating a story in my paintings, and that's kind of what I tried to do with this one. And so my thought here was, this is like a soldier who has been in battle, and then this like angel comes and, you know, they're like having this moment, and that's kind of why I added the sword. But then also I added like a little bit of like wounds on his face, just to kind of give that impression that like he's been fighting, or, you know, he was at some point fighting. I think what makes me love this painting so much is, for one thing, like the way that the characters turned out. I just love, like I'm so happy with them. I really love the color palette too. Like I just think the color palette ended up being so pretty. The background also, again, the beginning of the year, I didn't really do any sort of backgrounds, nothing fancy. And now I'm like creating these sort of backgrounds where it looks like a full scene. So that's really cool. Like I am excited to continue building on that, because I'm really happy with this. Like I think it turned out really cool. And then this next one is, again, I was going for trying to tell some sort of story with my art. I don't love this one. I think I really struggled with the background in this one. I was looking at a lot of reference photos from Maxine V. If you follow her art on Instagram, super pretty. But I felt like she has this way of just like using these very simple shapes. It just makes it look like everything that she paints belongs in that world. And I don't know what it is about this painting. I just couldn't really quite get there. I think the problem with this painting is I kind of painted everything the same texture. So like the door, for example, is like, there's no real like texture on the door. It's very simply painted. It like looks like it's the same texture as his shirt, and like the leaves don't look like they belong. I think I just have to work on creating texture for different materials. Kind of what I tried doing in this next one. So in this one, I imagine a witch at a farmer's market. I tried adding texture this time. So like you can see here, like the wood, I actually just, instead of using a textured brush, I just drew in the wood texture here. You can see it down here too. And I do think this was a little bit more successful. Like I do like this one better than the previous one. I think I like the color palette. I struggled a little bit with the color palette here, but I do think I like it better. I think it turned out a lot better. These next two that I want to share are basically studies or just things where I was practicing things. This one up top of the girl is actually from a Patreon tutorial that I did, talking about how I paint lighting. Once I finished that, I actually went back and took a bunch of texture brushes to just sort of play around with texture. And so you'll see, if I zoom in here, you can see a lot of like crazy textures. I really like how this turned out. I also did some studies of clothing. If this one looks familiar to you, that's because that is a reference photo of Jon Snow from Game of Thrones that I found on Pinterest. So if that looks familiar, that's why. Did some clothing studies. I tried finding a couple of different textures and materials to try and paint and see if I could get like a different feel for them. So like, for example, this dress down here is a velvety kind of material. And then this one over here is obviously like a silk or like satin kind of look. I'm really happy with how that pink dress turned out. I think it turned out really cool. I think if you zoom in, you can like, it doesn't look as like fancy, but whenever I zoom out, I'm just like, oh, that looks just like the reference photo, which is cool. A quick tip too, if you don't like doing studies or like you're kind of scared of doing studies, something that I have found really helpful is just picking small parts of the photo to study. So for example, this like dress here, it's actually just a small portion of the photo. Like the photo itself was the whole person in the dress, and I just did this bottom part because I found it to be the most interesting. Same thing for these shirts right here. The photo was of the entire shirt, but I just took the like arm part so I could study that specific portion. When I did this one of like Jon Snow, I didn't pay any attention really to the face, and I just kind of blocked in basic shapes for a general face shape. That just sort of to me makes it easier. And then this is one of the last paintings that I did for the year. So this is of Kaz from Six of Crows. I am super late to the hype train that is Six of Crows, but yeah, I really loved it because I think when Six of Crows really took off, I had like just gotten out of reading, or like I just wasn't into reading at the time, and then I just recently got back into reading in the last year or so. So I have seen so many people recommend Six of Crows. Well, I am very late to it. I've had it, I think I put on Patreon. I am kind of embarrassed at how long I've had it on my shelf and just not read it, because it's been like probably over a year. When I first got into reading, it was one of the first books that I bought. And because I knew, I was like, I like heard the premise and I'm like, I think I'm really gonna like this book. And then I just couldn't, I think I read the first chapter and was like, I don't know. So I kept going to other things. And then I finally gave it another shot and finally got through it. And I'm so happy I did because it was fantastic. I really liked Crooked Kingdom also. The pacing of Crooked Kingdom was a lot slower to me. I didn't like it as much, but Six of Crows was phenomenal. Phenomenal. So yeah, anyway, this is Kaz from Six of Crows. And then finally we have Aelin and Rowan. This is a scene from Kingdom of Ash. This is at the end of the book when basically it's the happy ending. Everybody's happy, everyone's dancing. Yeah, I have wanted to paint this scene pretty much since I finished the series the first time. So it was one of those things where I knew the vision that I had in my mind, and I was like, if I try to paint it, I don't think I will be able to do it justice. And so I just never did. And then I finally was like, okay, I'm gonna paint it. We're gonna just try it. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's either this one or this one that are my favorite paintings of the year. And then just to kind of show you the growth that I've had this year, these are the first like 3 big paintings that I did at the beginning of 2025. And then these are some of the ones at the end of 2025. I can see a lot of growth, especially backgrounds. I'm kind of surprised because my backgrounds aren't where I want them to be, but I'm actually surprised to look back and see that they've actually improved quite a bit. So that's really cool. I think my anatomy has gotten better. Storytelling, like in an illustration, has gotten better. So yeah, I'm really proud of the work that I did in 2025. I cannot wait for 2026. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little digital sketchbook tour. Let me know if you guys like this kind of like sketchbook tour video. I love sketchbook tours. But yeah, if you'd like to see more sketches and artwork from me, you can do so on Patreon. You can join my lavender tier for $2. I'm also going to be starting in January adding a new tier to Patreon for $5 where you can get a monthly tutorial video. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!